I'm pleased to introduce to you Elliot Kotek. I put Elliot in this position because he integrates both making change happen and telling stories about it. Many of you met Elliot last night on our panel about storytelling. I'll let him tell his story, but he integrates both the creation and the sharing that we've been talking about over the last day and a half. So with that, Elliot Kotek.
Hello. Welcome back this morning. It's so great to hear like the words of President Fox this morning talking about compassion, then talking about like this Alyssa just talking about checking your ego, right? Personally, my whole kind of way through storytelling has been to try and kind of come back to a point where it's ideas plus empathy generating impact. Right, so compassion and understanding and things like that. And the way I've kind of made my way through this kind of landscape is through storytelling. And so some of the examples that are up on the screen at the moment, one of them is 140. It was the first ever user-generated film. We were really thinking about all the kind of ways that people were saying, hey, you know what, like social media is really disrupting the way we communicate. We're texting in short form, we're writing in shorthand, we're posting statuses, and everything's too quick, and we're losing that ability to really connect with each other. So we were like, okay, well, if you use the same construct and apply the same obstacles, if you only have 140 seconds to tell your story and you can only use the power of the internet to generate that feature film, what can happen? So we reached out on Twitter fairly early in its existence, and we signed up 140 filmmakers from 23 countries, 5 continents. We didn't know what they would give us. They each sent us 140 seconds of footage, and we realized that the themes that they generated and the stories they told were universal: family, environment, love, pets, some self-promotion, but mostly love, family, humor, pets. And so it was really this kind of cool experiment because we didn't know what we were going to get, and we left things to chance. And some people didn't hand their things in, didn't submit their footage, and we thought, isn't that true of the internet? We just don't know who's going to be real, who's not, right? Similarly, in the middle, Raise My Hands was a tribute to Nelson Mandela, but we only knew that we were going to get stills, opportunities to do stills with some of the greatest actors and other talent on the planet. So we wanted to get them to signify something. So we used the power of their hands to pledge to make the world a little bit better in honor of Nelson Mandela on his birthday. And the symbol of Nelson Mandela's hand raised as he was released from Robben Island was this powerful symbolic gesture. And we all kind of communicate, we shake hands, we wave to each other. And so what does that symbology mean? How do we use it to communicate in a non-verbal way? And Queen Mimi, which has just been playing in theaters at the moment actually, about a homeless woman. She's now about to turn 91. She's been homeless since her 50s. For the first 20 years she lived on the streets. The next 20 years she found her way into a laundromat. And she literally slept and lived within this laundromat on a garden chair and doing the laundry in LA for young actors on their way up who would tip her to do their laundry. And those relationships that she formed and the community that came out of her working in this laundromat led to these relationships being formed with people like Zach Galifianakis and Renee Zellweger. And as their stars rose, they would come and take her to the movies, send limos to take her to their film premieres. And as they became wealthy enough to share a little, they ended up getting her own apartment across the road from the laundromat still, so she could still be connected to her community. So a lot of these kind of conversations and unique touching points that we talk about here, passion, community, are all so important in the way that we tell our stories in order to have the most amount of impact. And through that lens, we've been able to meet some incredible storytellers, other storytellers. I get to talk to other passionate people about their passions, which is contagious. It's truly like one of the great gifts is that if you can sit down with people you admire who are passionate about anything, that passion resonates, right? Some of us don't know what our passion is, but if we're around enough other people who have passions of their own, we can identify and connect. And like someone said yesterday, maybe we don't get them to help us with our idea, with our passion, with our purpose. We can help them with theirs. For me, that storytelling crystallized around this idea of technology for the sake of humanity, What if we could use technology for its ultimate purpose, connecting people, making lives better? We're all being accessible, we're all finding access to cell phones and computers and 3D printers and all the other things that Dale Doherty was talking about yesterday. But what happens when we take that technology and provide it to the people who normally don't have access to it? Those things that make our lives that little bit more convenient can be completely transformative in someone else's hands, whether they're limited by geography, finance, or their physical being. For me, I kind of like was aware that maybe I was kind of the perfect person for this because, look, my last name is Kotek, and the first time we get our hands on technology like the internet, we generally put our name into Google and see what happens. And so for me, that sense of belonging came from doing that exact thing, because this is what happened. So if there was anyone who was supposed to use the internet as a medium, I guess it just had to be, right? Cats and the internet. I didn't buy that search term, by the way. It just happened. I swear, you can do it right now. But what happened next was that we rallied around these ideas of stories. We said, how can we use this technology, specifically 3D printing? And it led to this project called Project Daniel. We read an article in Time magazine about a doctor who was working in Sudan. He's actually in Sudan, just north of the border from South Sudan, in a place called the Nuba Mountains. This is a place that's constantly getting bombed by the Sudanese government because they fought for the South Sudanese, but when the borders were drawn, they were left on the north side of that border. So the Sudanese government continues to bomb them, and this one doctor services about 650,000 people in this region, does everything. When the going got tough, he decided to stay, even though they wanted to pull him out. And it was also about this boy, Daniel, who'd lost both his arms in a farm, like he was out farming his cattle, and he heard one of these Antonov planes flying overhead. And usually, if you're in the city, you can duck into a foxhole, and the spray from these bombs won't contact you, won't affect you. But he was out in the field farming his cattle and didn't have that benefit. So we decided to help him. So we brought a team of knowledge is power, right? So we brought a group of people together, again, our community. We brought them together to ideate on what would be the best solution to help this boy, Daniel. We had engineers, we had physical therapists, we had designers from IDEO, a guy who owns a 3D printer company, a storyteller, an Oscar-nominated filmmaker, a dog. You always have to have a pet around. It makes everything more friendly. And we sent a team of 4 people to Yida, which the UN calls the most challenging camp in the world. And here's a quick look at what happened.
Daniel was 14 when the bomb took his arms. I read the article about him and had to help. I came to Sudan with 3D printers, laptops, spools of plastic, and the goal to build Daniel an arm. You ready? And then Daniel fed himself for the first time in 2 years. but it's never about just one person.
You just double click. This is the hand, 90 degrees.
If we could teach the locals to do it themselves, the project could live long after we left. And it did.
So as you can see, taking something. Thank you. It is amazing though that like these stories, they happen. Nonprofits do this work all the time, but they don't tell their stories, right? So it's storytelling that needs to happen. This amplification needs to happen in order for these things to become common knowledge, so that we become aware that these files exist, that we can demand these solutions in our own places, that we can demand this technology. This for us, it was reaching everywhere. This help one, help many philosophy, we talked about it a little bit last night, where it was enough for, sometimes the world can seem a little overwhelming. The problems that we talk about can seem a little too big. There's such huge issues like poverty and polio and all these different things that can be solved by a select few groups of people. But what can we each do, right? I think a quote was attributed to Reagan. He said that no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. So here it was, a couple of guys in a Venice beach house who got together, who brought together these thinkers and these other people who we didn't really even know before in order to provide this solution and then make that solution available to everyone. Similarly, there's a project called Don's Voice. I won't go into it for the sake of time, but the success of Project Daniel and the fact that we were able to amplify it led to other brands coming to us and said, look, you did well and you did good. And this marketing group at Intel won all these awards. So they were able to do their jobs, get better eyeballs, get better impressions, get better views, get better metrics for the work they were doing by doing good. You don't have to sacrifice one to do the other. But you have to think holistically. If I can do good with this piece of the puzzle, how can I ensure that this story sustains, remains? And that's a challenge for everyone because we've moved as a society. It used to be enough for a marketing company to say, good. We'll give 10% of whatever you buy to charity. We didn't ask for accountability. Then it had to be show good. I want to see the photos of the people you're helping. I want to see the videos. But now we're in a place where you have to prove good. And that's the next step of the puzzle. Us as responsible corporate citizens not only have to do this work and pledge to do the work, but show that we did and then prove what we did. And it's all like what Dale was talking about yesterday. We're in this world now where we've got permissionless innovation, where the things that used to be held in buildings in academia and big corporates are now available to us. We can order a 3D printer off Amazon. It can be in our house in a couple of days. If we don't know how to turn it on, we can watch a video on YouTube on how to turn it on. If we want to know what to do with it or we need help, we're so connected now. We're connected in places like this, and we're connected via the internet to find fellow people who will help us on our journey. We are not alone. Any idea that you have, you're not alone. So it's this permissionless innovation that's going to introduce these ideas in basements, in communities, all around the world. But it's the storytelling and the sharing of these ideas that is going to be enabling us to transform sectors. And that's where brands and businesses are so important, because we have to amplify these sorts of stories, these sorts of messages, like Chris was talking about last night. Let's populate this world with good stories that can find their way through, that can inspire others to do this work. A lot of people talk about the 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit. What's better than 3 Ps? 4 Ps. Good work. So this is what I want to remind you. And these are words that just recur throughout the conference, right? Find your passion. Be passionate. Know what your passion is. And if you don't know your passion, that's cool too. Find other people who are passionate. Watch other people who are passionate and say, I want to help that person or that idea or that thing come to fruition. You might figure out your passion in time, or you might just find that it's exciting enough to be close to someone else's idea and help that idea come to the fore. But it's that passion that defines your purpose. And when you declare your purpose, you have no idea how quickly people come to you and say, you need to meet this person. You need to meet this other person. And so you find your people. And I believe that once you've found your people, that anything is possible. Thank you so much.
Cheers, thanks, Elliot. Love, family, humor, pets. That's what all the movies were about. That sounds pretty good, actually. Did you note that moment in Elliot's film where the fellow hit his head on the roof? Did you do this? I felt it here because I run my head into stuff all the time. You literally felt that. I literally felt that. That's how this stuff works. President Fox talked about how we're going to eradicate poverty in this century. It's not hard to imagine how when you think if they can do that today, what could we do in 30 years? Elliot mentioned ideas plus empathy equals impact. Well, of course, there's another piece in there, and that's action. And the people above perhaps most others that turn ideas into action are entrepreneurs. And that doesn't necessarily mean a traditional entrepreneur. It could be someone who's entrepreneurial in any setting.